Hi and welcome to L.I.F.E, the Los Angeles Institute for Film Excellence, the show that caters to the independent filmmaker. I am George Vincent, your host, and today we have with us Casting Director Craig Campobasso, successful in the industry with over 100 credits on IMDB, 95 of them as casting director, and he is the real deal. Craig, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's just jump right on in. Where are you from originally? A little bit about your background.
Well, I was born in Sun Valley, right here in the Valley, and grew up in the Valley. Like most people here, wanted to be an actor, like everybody else, but nobody in my family knew anybody in the industry. So when I became about 15 years old, my mother started inquiring with a few people, and we met John Fisher, who was an agent at Commercials Unlimited at the time, and he signed me, and we did pictures, and I went out on commercial auditions and that kind of thing, and then eventually I signed on with Kelman Arletta, which was a kids agency back when that had all of the top kids, right? Wow. And I was lucky because I didn't know who was a good agent, who wasn't a good agent, and that, so I landed with really terrific people. At the same time, I was working for a film company that made teasers and trailers, literally right out of high school at age 17. And then after working there for a little bit, I got asked by the owner of that company's friend, whose sister was working on a new movie at Universal called Dune, directed by David Lynch and produced by Dino and Raffaella De Laurentiis. Wow. And they were looking for a production assistant. And I begrudgingly said, okay. I look in hindsight and say, if I had never accepted that job and learned from the master storytellers, right? David Lynch, Frank Herbert, the De Laurentiises. You know, Dino made over 560 some studio pictures while he was alive. That man was like the last of the movie moguls. So, and his daughter Raffaella produced a lot of films for her father as well. So I got to learn that, but at the same time as we made Dune, we made Conan the Destroyer. So I was working on both films at the same time, and we shot them at a Studios Churubusco in Mexico City. I worked on the movie for 4 years, on Dune for 4 years, and it was, I look back on it fondly because it's a thing that groomed me for my career in the industry. And at the end of the 4 years, Raffaella said to me, so what department did you like the best? Where can we fit you next time? And I said, I like casting.
Wow.
And so she put me on as an assistant on her next film, which was Taipan with starring Brian Brown. And I remember Joanna Ray was the casting director.
Joanna Ray.
Yeah. And she primarily was my casting mentor.
This next question is really for our actors out there who are watching.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, what do you look for in an actor's audition while they're auditioning? What do you look for as a casting director?
You know, it's something that's a quality that an actor has that they may not know that they have. It's one of those things where you don't quite know it until you see it. And if I see a spark of it in there, I will try and pull it out as much as possible. And then I will say to the actor, I'm going to bring you back, and when you come back, do not change it. You know, I always prefaced everything, don't go to an acting coach and mess this up. I know exactly what the director is looking for. There was only a few times that they did and came back, and I mean, I thought they were my ace in the hole, and the director just dismissed them literally before they could even finish their audition. So, but It's looking for professionalism, not only in a headshot, right? But making sure your resume is done right, how to present yourself when you come into an office. There are still a lot of directors that want hard copies of pictures, and I put that in the notices, and if they don't bring it, they don't get seen.
Because of the current climate, a lot of the auditions are self-tape.
Right.
What would you say are the do's and don'ts for our actors out there?
Well, it's really simple. You know, you can get a little HD camera for like $100 on Amazon. Get a little ring light and a background. That's all you need to do your self-tape auditions. And what I like to see is if you think that scene can be done 2 different ways, do the one that you think it should be from the notes first, and then add a second take after that so we can get an idea, because we're not seeing you in the office yet. The next step is if you progress to the next round, then we would, well, especially during COVID, but now we're going back to in person.
Okay.
And you'll be really quite surprised how many people are like, well, I'm not coming in. I'm used to doing this online and getting hired online. So there were, like, in one session I recently held for a lead, 2 leads in a movie, spanning a 4-hour time with a male and a female to read together. Of course, you know, spread apart and the whole thing. 11 actors showed up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Where's the hunger? Where's the drive?
It's just a weird, different climate. So what I'm saying to people is, you could be one of those people if you show up.
Sure.
Right? We might go to the next round, might be either, you know, on breakdown where we do the callback session on breakdown and everyone comes into the room and we do it that way. But never do they not want to meet them before they hire them. So there will be an in-person thing at a certain point.
People seem to be their own worst enemies out there.
Yes, absolutely. I always tell actors if I'm doing a talk, you know, somewhere, is you should always look up and see who the producers are, who the director is, and if they've done a lot of big stuff, you want to make sure that you're going to go show up, even if the pay is not that great. Because you don't know what's going to happen once you get in that room. You might be considered for something bigger. They may think of you down the line for something else. The movie that I was previously talking about where 11 people showed up actually was for a big producer. So obviously people did not take the time to go and look or to do any of those things, and so they actually missed out.
So it seems that a lot of this happens to be that people don't treat it like a business.
Right. That's absolutely right. They're not serious. Yeah, and if you're not serious, we know that. And if you're an unknown and you're coming in and reading for a lead, and I don't feel that you're taking it seriously because you're not paying attention to my direction and you're not going through the hoops and the circles and things like that to really get there to understand it, or asking the right questions, then it ends there because you don't have the skills. What's going to happen when you're on a set?
Exactly.
Are you going to have a meltdown? Are you going to this? You know, and the opposite of that is you could be very experienced and you could be a chatty Cathy or a chatty John. And if you're like yakety yak and you won't shut up, we're not going to hire you if we have especially giant stars, because we don't want you going up and talking their ear off or talking to everybody and pulling people away from their actual jobs.
Their focus.
Right.
You have a ton of films under your belt. And I'm sure that during that time you've had some unfavorable experiences with, say, filmmakers, directors. Can you share some of those challenges that should be avoided?
Every time you start a film, if your director and producers are really amazing people, it is going to be the most smoothest, happiest film that you've ever been on. And so when I go in and I meet on movies, if there is tension, if there is certain things that that I might look at and say, ugh, I don't know. Is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be worth it for me to deal with this for months on end? Or should I just respectfully say, I've got another movie?
Bow out.
Right. So, and I've done that in the past as well, just bowed out because I'm just to the point in my life where I just don't want to work with unhappy people. And I want to work with happy people and have happy sets and that kind of thing. So,
what crosses the line with you from say a director's point or from a filmmaker's? What is it where you say no?
Well, there's besides egos being involved, there are some people who think that their script is the best one that was ever written. I've heard this like a million times. We're going to win awards. We're going to this, and I'm like, oh God, do I dare say no? You're never going to win an award. It's a nice script, but it's not award winning, right? Mm-hmm. And but I've read thousands of scripts. When I was an actor, I would read a script. I didn't know a good script from a bad script. It took me years and years and years of reading scripts constantly to understand the whole setup of a script and to understand character and that kind of thing. So if I see a film, and let's say they say, well, we have a $10 million budget and we have $1 million for our lead, and if it's a brilliant role, then I know I can bring in some of the bigger names because it's a role that they've never done and would they would challenge themselves to do it. So that's how those things sort of happen. But if they're being unrealistic and they have 100,000 or a Schedule F, which is 65 for the entire shoot, and they want they're dreaming of an A-lister. Right. I say I give them their agent's phone number, and I said I want you to call them, and I want you to tell them. And I just want to listen in on the other end and watch them chew you up. Yeah. Right? Because that's exactly what they're going to do.
Most indie films have a finite budget.
Right.
So how would you recommend maximizing the casting dollars for a project like that? Well,
back in the day, we would always be handed a casting budget. Right, we're talking in the 80s and into the 90s, right? And in this budget, it would say Jane Doe, the lead, works for 8 weeks, and we have $5 million. And then as it goes down into the more co-starring actors and things like that, it'll say we have 1 week and we have $50,000, right? Now, what that means is when I bring actors in, I can bring the actors in who are in that money range for a daily or a weekly rate. And then if the director and the producers want to hire them and they feel that they'll give some bang for their buck, then we can do that. But if the actor's last quote was, let's say $25,000 for a week, then we have a little negotiating room, and usually they will bump it up at least $1,000 back in the day per week, right? Then the day came where all of the giant movie stars started making $20 million on a movie, and every actor became scale plus 10. And so that's pretty much what it is today, even on big movies as well. They may stay for let's say, if it's a giant director, and of course they're going to pay the other supporting actors and the other leads what they're due, but then everyone else is scale plus 10, because who's going to say no to working in a scene with a giant movie star?
Correct.
Right?
If you had a choice to, say, cast a one name, big name actor or multiple recognizable faces, and you have a limited budget, what would you say is the best?
I once did a film where they kind of allowed me to not do what I wanted, but to guide them, and they took the guidance.
Good.
And I said, why don't we pick I said, what I find that works for indie movies, because of you want as many recognizable names and faces on the back of your video box, or now DVD or Blu-ray, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, we get our name that helps with the financer that they're fine with. And then I go in and I get other TV names. I'll pull somebody from music, right? Like, I called Lou Rawls up once because I love Lou Rawls.
Sure.
I said, hey, you want to play a priest? And he's, oh, yeah, that'd be cool, with his deep voice, right?
Yeah.
And, I brought in, over the years, the girls on the B-52s. I talked to them. I tried to get Nancy Sinatra to come out of retirement and play a part, and it didn't work.
What is the best way for a filmmaker or a director to approach you about their project?
Well, they can approach me if they have financing or partial financing, because I don't work for free, and everybody wants me to, but I can't. Mm-mm. Honestly, I've been doing it way too long, so people can hire me to help them get a lead that might help to raise the rest of their financing.
For our aspiring casting directors out there, what advice do you have for them?
A lot of people don't really realize that it's a lot more to it than just picking actors.
Right.
You literally should go and intern in an office as much as possible, then try and get a job as a casting assistant, so that you learn the day-to-day business, maybe on a TV show where it's really busy all day long, and then you can work with the associate and learn what the associate does, and watch the casting director and see how those things are done, because you're going to have really great people skills, you're going to have really good negotiating skills, you're going to come up against very bold and brazen agents, and you're going to come up against anything and everything you can think of, you will come up against.
It's time for this or that. These are quick responses, so are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
Okay. Vanilla or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Meat or veggies?
Veggies.
Wow. Classical music or pop music?
I like them both. Kind of even, actually. Yeah. But I love listening to classical music. Yeah.
Boots or sneakers?
Sneakers.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
L.A. or New York?
L.A., and if you can believe it, I have never been to New York. Ever.
Finally, indie film or blockbuster?
Oh, wow. I do love watching the blockbuster films. I love watching them, but I also love indie films, so I'm going to 50-50 it.
I love the way you're so well-rounded.
Yeah.
Seriously, thank you very, very much for your time, Craig. You've enlightened us quite a lot.
You're welcome.
And to all our fans out there, to all our supporters, I want to say thank you for joining us. Until next time, take care.